This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
Yo, 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 welcome in to another episode of the Fantasy Roadshow. We are your hosts. My name is Truck, and I'm joined as always by Shane-O-Mac, and today we are here talking Week 2, red light, green light, start, sit, all the big decisions for Week 2. I am super excited after Week 1, man. Just give me more football, more and more football. Shane, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. It was a weird Week 1, but it was fun. Like, I was watching Sunday afternoon, and I was not having great games with my guys, but man, I was still just enjoying it. We got a great game on Sunday night. That was a fun one to watch. So it was beautiful. Great times again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Week 1 football is something else for me, and I have like a bit of a hangover on like Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm just like, all right, come on. Where is it at?
Then you get Tuesday. Tuesday is like you get all ramped up because you got to go in, make all those waiver claims in all your leagues.
Yes.
Anticipation, how much fab are you going to bid? Then you get the Monday morning, like waking up like a mini Christmas to see if you got your guy. So like Tuesday,
Wednesday, yeah. No, absolutely. Well, we're here answering those questions for you. We're going to cover our starts and sits, our red light, green light, guys we like, we don't like. A lot of good games for Week 2. I'm really excited about this slate. As I was preparing for this episode, there's just a whole bunch of names I had written down. So I'm just deciphering through these names on which ones to talk about. But let's kick it off. Let's start right off. And let's talk about some red light quarterbacks. So Shane, who's on your list this week? Who are you pumping the brakes on for quarterbacks?
So my first red light quarterback is Mr. Joe Burrow. There's a couple things I'm worried about. Number one, the Chiefs are a really good defense at home. Last year they allowed, I think it was the 5th or the 6th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. You can't really take away what happened last week because much of what they allowed fantasy point wise was to Lamar rushing the ball, which you're not going to see with Joe. I'm a little concerned he's still not going to have T. Higgins back. I'm a little concerned that he's got this wrist issue is bothering him more than people thought with some of the video footage that has come out this week. So that's just some of the red flags I have going into Arrowhead and playing against that Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The Bengals, they start slow. So, generally speaking, though, Burrow plays well against the Chiefs. So I would love to see that game, but I don't know if we're going to be if the cards are lined up for him as of right now. So who else you got?
And then I'm going with somebody who the stats are probably going to tell you otherwise that you should start. But I'm a little concerned about Matthew Stafford and that matchup against Arizona in Arizona. So the stats are going to tell you like they're one of the worst defenses in far as fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. But I'm concerned with a couple things. One, no Puka Nacua going into that game, obviously. And then two, like he's going to be down 2 or 3 starting offensive linemen. And I just feel like this could be more of a Kyren Williams game. I'm not sure you see the 300-plus yards and multiple touchdowns in this game. Like I said, this one is a little bit against what you'll probably read in the consensus analysis this week. But I just have my concerns outside of what the stats tell you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because I'm in a particular personal league where I have one of my red light quarterbacks we'll talk about soon. But I was looking at the waiver wire. I'm like, man, Stafford threw for 300 yards last week, Arizona. So I appreciate you saying that and talking some sense into me because it does on paper look like a juicy matchup.
It does.
That's fair.
Yeah.
My red light quarterbacks this week, I did have Joe Burrow on my list. He was one that I highlighted, so I appreciate you saying that. My other one is dear to my heart. It's Caleb Williams. After what we saw last week, it's obvious he's going to need some time in the NFL. Prime time against the Texans. Sure, the Colts put up a lot of points against the Texans, and Anthony Richardson made some deep passes and played relatively well. But I'm not comfortable starting Caleb right now. I do think better days are ahead. I think he's going to end up playing much better as the season progresses. But as of right now, I'm not starting Caleb, and I'm looking for another route. And I was considering Stafford, but maybe we'll talk about another one in the green light section. But he's one, and then it's an obvious one, Deshaun Watson. Like, you just cannot play him. He looked terrible against the Cowboys, at the Jags this week. Nothing about that looked really good to me. So I'm sitting Caleb and Deshaun Watson, pumping the brakes on them. Deshaun's a little bit more obvious one, and Caleb after the performance he put on. But what do you think there?
Yeah, I think Caleb, like, that is a primetime Sunday night game. That crowd's going to be amped up. Houston's going to be amped up. They have a better defensive this year. They added Hunter on the edge. I think they'll be better. A lot of that yardage that Richardson had was 2 long bombs. It's hard to see Caleb doing that with. I don't see that happening in Houston. Rome Odunze has got a knee sprain or issue.
MCL sprain. He's week to week.
Week to week. So who knows if he's playing? I have a feeling.
Did you mention Keenan Allen too?
No. And Keenan
Allen is dealing with a heel injury. He took the day off today. Coach gave him a rest day. So that's why you see he's questionable right now. It's not an indication that he's not going to play, but he's an old guy dealing with a heel injury. So the coach is giving him some time off.
Yeah. I like that call because in one of my leagues, one of my main leagues where I stream defenses, I picked up Houston this week, just thinking the same thing, that Chicago may struggle on the road.
Yeah, it might be a good play there. So,
yeah.
And then for Greenlight quarterbacks this week, someone I'm really considering picking up and starting, Jared Goff. Jared Goff taking on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's got one of the worst pass defenses in the league. I think Jared Goff, with the performance that they put on this last week, he's going to be putting up some numbers against Tampa Bay. So I want all the Jared Goff, picking him up off the waiver wire and throwing him in the starting lineup immediately if I have Caleb or another option like that. So who do you got, Shane?
So I've got Goff also. He was my main Greenlight start of the week. I think there's a couple things. Like, one, home golf. We always like home golf. 2, like in that playoff game in January, he threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Tampa Bay, I was reading this morning, they could be without 2 to 3 starters in that secondary on Sunday, which would be a huge blow, playing those set of weapons. I just think they are almost like a 49ers-esque or 49ers light as far as what they can roll out there with 2 receivers, elite tight end, elite running backs, and weapons to throw to.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's kick it over to running backs. Shane, what do you got for red light running backs on week 2?
My first guy is I'm going with Zack Moss in that game against Kansas City. We just saw Kansas City hold Derrick Henry to like 3.5 yards per carry. I think this is a game where the Bengals are probably down, multiple scores in the second half. And how much do we see Zack Moss in that scenario versus maybe Chase Brown if they want to work in more with a third down passing game? So I just think this sets up for a down game for him. I'd be avoiding him. Another guy that I've got on my red light and probably people took him in a similar range is Zamir White. While he had more rush attempts than Alexander Madison, he played fewer snaps, and now he's got to go on the road against the Ravens, who are much better at home and a much better defense against the run. This sets up, I think, to be, a pretty low scoring game for the Raiders.
Yeah, I completely agree. Those 2 guys are on my list this week. I have a couple of other names. I had quite a bit, actually, as I was going through these running backs, man. There's a lot that I'm just not too thrilled about. And another one, the Bears, right? DeAndre Swift, Texans. Swift put up a stinker last week, wasn't involved in the passing game at all. Texans defense, they're a tough defense, allowing just 73.6 rushing yards per game, dating back to last season. So this is going to be a tough game with Swift, and I'm not excited about it. A couple others, Aaron Jones taking on the 49ers. There's really not much explanation there. 49ers defense is stout. And Aaron Jones, I'm just very cautious, and I think it's a risky play this week. Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin. With Javonte, we saw him get out-touched 15-9 by Jaleel, and I don't want either one of them against the Steelers. The Steelers' defense is the real deal, and I think the Broncos are going to be struggling pretty heavily in this game. I don't want any pieces on the Broncos side against the Steelers. So those are my red light running backs this week.
Yeah. The only other name I'll mention real quick is, like, you might think about Zeke because he scored. He had like 3 or 4 catches, but I'd avoid him. Saints are a much better run defense, and this is purely a series rotation in that offense. So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. What do you got for green light running backs? Shane-O-Mac.
Green light, man. I'm sticking on this one game, but I like and dislike the matchup. So in that Bengals Chiefs game, I love the matchup for Pacheco. We just saw the Bengals run defense just get gashed by Ramondre Stevenson and the Patriots. They weren't great last year. They're not great this year without DJ Reader. Chiefs will be up in the second half, leaning on the run. So I think even like if you're playing DFS, he's worth the money probably in DFS even. And then secondly, I really like Brian Robinson going against the Giants this year. They're starting off the year as a bottom 10 defense and fantasy points allowed to running backs. I really, really liked what I saw from Robinson getting the target volume in the receiving game. He had 4 targets and I think 3 catches for almost 50 yards. And we just saw the Giants allow Aaron Jones to rush for almost 100 yards and score. So I think Robinson has a great game today or this week.
Yeah, I like that. I can co-sign with those picks for sure. Green light running backs, I have quite a bit here as well. I'll try to run through them, but a couple of guys that you may have been able to pick up off the waiver wire, and I think you should start them right away. Jordan Mason is kind of an obvious one with the performance that he put up last week. It already looks like Christian McCaffrey is a long shot to play this week. So if you're able to get Jordan Mason on the waiver wire, or if you sharked him before week 1, start him with confidence against the Vikings. I think he'll have a great game. J.K. Dobbins is someone that we saw put up a really good stat line last week and have some really explosive runs. I think he can get the job done against the Panthers. Panthers defense is one of the worst against running backs, and J.K. should be running all over them. As far as other ones, I like Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs has a very positive matchup. I think he's going to play well. And then the other guy, too, is Tony Pollard going against the Jets. We saw the Jets just get absolutely ransacked in the run game last week. Mm-hmm. And Tony Pollard actually played really well against the Bears. I thought the Bears defense was going to play better than that, run defense especially. And it was not that way. Tony Pollard was just having his way with us. So I think we can see a similar output against the Jets. So those are my green light running backs for week 2.
Yep.
All right, let's jump to wide receivers. Who do you like or who do you not like for red light wide receivers, Shane? We pumping those breaks.
I've got 3 guys. I'll run through them real quick. One I do not like, even though he had a great week last week. I do not like George Pickens in this matchup. He's going to be in Denver. He'll have Patrick Surtain shadowing him. We just saw Patrick Surtain shut down DK Metcalf. I think this will be a limited offense, limited scoring for Pittsburgh in that game. So I'd be benching Pickens. Similar setup. I don't like the setup for Calvin Ridley. Jets are much better at home. Playing on the outside, he's probably going to see some Sauce Gardner for sure. So that should be a much tougher matchup. I think low scoring game for Tennessee. And then lastly, really Christian Watson. I think he's more the big play down the field threat for the Packers. And I don't think he's going to get that from Malik Willis. They're going to probably manufacture easy, quick, short A-dot throws, probably more of a Jaden Reed game than Christian Watson.
It's like you're reading off my sheet, Shane. It's like you're reading off my sheet. You got the same guys that I was going to talk about, Calvin Ridley, Christian Watson. A lot of these guys that you mentioned.
I can't believe we hit Watson of all the people.
Watson, yeah.
He
scored a touchdown. He was held to just 13 yards though. Jaden Reed is definitely the guy there. So, excuse me. I'm staying away from Christian Watson, staying away from Calvin Ridley. I'm also staying away from Diontae Johnson. This Panthers passing attack looked pretty abysmal this week. Chargers defense looked pretty good. So I'm staying away from Diontae Johnson if I'm able to. And then another guy I really like not this week, but I like in general, Brian Thomas. Tough matchup against the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to stay away from Brian. If I can, leave him on my bench for a better matchup. And then Cortland Sutton, it goes along with my Denver. Stay away from Denver this week against Pittsburgh. Sutton saw plenty of targets, and I just don't think he'll do much this week. So staying away from those guys.
Yeah.
What do you got for green light wide receiver, Shane?
Okay, I'm going to get kind of an obvious one out of the way, and so I'll asterisk it as it's a mini green light. But I think just in case there's people freaking out, do not bench Malik Nabers this week. that Giants offense is not going to look as bad. Washington is like the worst defense last year and this year against the pass and for receivers and fantasy points allowed. Keep him in there. I like a little bit of a mini bounce back game for Amari Cooper. Actually, I know it's going to shock you. I'm going to be you think I'd be the last person that is going to have Amari Cooper.
Shane-O-Mac, shocker of the week.
That is
not the official shocker of the week
for me to ever praise Amari Cooper. I didn't think, but yeah, this is the shocker of the week.
All right, I'm glad I clicked it then because you shocked me. So
yeah, I think so. Funny. A couple things. So like Watson just barely. I mean, it was inches missed him on like a 30-yard touchdown pass against the Cowboys. He saw a lot of Diggs coverage in that game. So now he's playing Jacksonville, who just allowed 2 of the Dolphins receivers to go over 100 yards. The last time he faced the Jags, I think he went for 80 yards and he had like 14 or 15 targets. I can't remember, but I just think we see a little bit of a mini bounce back from Cooper this week. So if you're thinking about benching him because of last week, I'd probably keep him in one more week.
I mean, that kind of ties into my theme for green light wide receivers this week is, don't freak out. There's quite a few guys I have on my list here that had a bad week. Drake London, Marvin Harrison, Malik Nabers, Terry McLaurin. I am comfortable starting all of these guys this week. I am not worried in the least bit. I got to see consistently bad games in order to start freaking out. But I think London bounces back. Harrison bounces back. Nabers has a better game than he had week 1. I think Terry McLaurin has a better week this week. So I really like them. And then also Keon Coleman. We saw Keon Coleman be the number 1 guy in Buffalo. And Josh Allen torches Miami. He's done it multiple times. I think I forgot the stat, but he torches the defense. Anytime he plays them. So I really like Keon Coleman this week. Rashee Rice, I really like this week. Should have a big game against Cincinnati. We saw him be the number 1 guy there. And that one's not as that one's a little more obvious. Rashee Rice, you're going to want to start him. Number 1 wide receiver for Kansas City. But yeah, those are the guys. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jameson Williams after his stud performance in week 1. I think you need to flex him. If you got him on the waiver or if you got him on the bench, you should consider flexing him because Jameson, I think, is the real deal. He had just an insane output and that energy. Just love that energy on the field. So
yeah, last 2 games for him, over 200 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. I think like we were talking about, we never really talked about it, but a lot of people are doing thinking about, who should I buy? Who should I sell? Jameson Williams is a hold for me. I don't think this is a fluke. Like there's going to be attention given to Laporta and St. Brown all year. I would just hold on to him.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's cover some tight ends. Yeah, let's do tight ends. Red light tight ends. Shane, what do you got? As I'm getting a leaf blower in my
a little work done. Mine is Dallas Goedert, and a lot of people are probably going to be starting him based off of he's just one of those top 10, top 12 tight ends, and you're usually just going with those guys. But man, I just think there's just so much competition for targets in that Philly offense. A.J. Brown and Smith, and now you've got Barkley competing for touches and receptions, and then you're going to see so much of Barkley, I think, now inside the 10 and inside the 5. That's just going to take away some of those red zone opportunities that Goddard has seen last year.
Yeah, I can co-sign that. Goddard, it's interesting because Atlanta inherently they don't defend tight ends very well. I think they allowed the 5th most receiving yards to tight ends since last season. So, but I agree with you. There's a lot of competition for targets there. We didn't see much, 7.1 fantasy points last week. So it's just nothing juicy there for Dallas Goedert at all. So I am. Did you have any more? Did you want to mention?
No.
Red light? Okay. I'm a little worried about Evan Engram going against the Browns. Tough matchup. Evan Engram didn't really see what we usually see from him last week. he wasn't really targeted much, wasn't really involved in the passing game. That should improve, and maybe this could bite me in the ass this week. Maybe this is the week it jumps up. But I think against the Browns, one of the best teams against tight ends, I'm avoiding him pretty much at all costs. And then, I mean, Cole Kmet shouldn't even be rostered, in my opinion. I feel like he should be a waiver wire guy. So if you got him, drop him. Luke Musgrave had a bad performance last week, so I wouldn't be holding on to him either. But main guy is Evan Engram. I would not be starting him this week.
Yep.
And then what do you got for green light tight ends, Shane-O-Mac?
Green light. So just overarching statement, like you had said with receivers, don't panic on your top 4 or 5 tight ends that struggled. Keep starting them this year. It's gonna bounce back, so don't worry. So when I'm looking at, like, if you were a Cole Kmet manager, and so you're needing to make a switch off the waiver wire, I was looking at, okay, who's somebody you can pick up off the waiver wire and probably start this week that has a better shot at having a good game. And for me, that guy is Colby Parkinson. I think maybe like you see him inherit more targets with Puka Nacua out. He went, I think it was like 4 for 50 on Sunday night, which if you get that, if you're getting almost 10 PPR points, even without a touchdown, you're probably going to be a top 12 tight end close to it. And if he throws in a touchdown, now you're looking at like a top 5 tight end for the week. So that's somebody I would look to pick up off the waiver wires. And you could probably even use him for over the next 3 or 4 weeks, because Tyler Higbee's still going to be out for 3 more weeks, and Nacua is going to be out for 4 weeks.
Yeah, I love that call. He was on my list as well. Didn't know if you would mention him or not, but yeah, Colby is an interesting one to me. He had a couple of good plays last week where I was like, wait, who is it? Colby Parkinson? Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me make note of that. So, yeah, and my green light tight ends are very similar to my green light wide receivers. Like you mentioned, don't freak out. Trey McBride left people high and dry week 1. I don't think that happens this week. Scored double-digit fantasy points in both games against Los Angeles last year. I think he has a big game. Mark Andrews, I'm not freaking out about Mark Andrews. I'm not going to sit him. Even if you picked up Likely, I do like Likely. Don't get me wrong. He was great. But if you have Andrews, I'm not worried about starting him. Kyle Pitts, I know he caught a touchdown, didn't really do much outside of the touchdown, but I think he has a better game on the Monday Night Football against the Eagles. And Pat Freiermuth. I think Freiermuth could be a legitimate option this week at Denver. I just got a phone call. It just totally ruined my train of thought. But yeah, Pat Freiermuth. And then the obvious ones, Kincaid, Andrews, McBride. Don't freak out. McBride, you're not freaking out too much, but I know people with Andrews are definitely worried a bit and maybe considering other options, but I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that concludes our red light, green light for week 2. Be on the lookout. We have our Sunday Start Sit live on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and check us out. Hang out with us Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. with Shane and I as we answer all your questions. We go over the slate, talk about the game, pick some winners, and maybe even talk some prop bets. But we're going to have some fun there. And go check out the Substack, thefantasyroadshow.substack.com. Hit us up on Twitter if you got any questions about your roster or any trades. We would love to analyze trades, and we'll be talking to you guys more often. All right. Shane, any closing statements for people getting ready for week 2?
Subscribe to the Substack. For any of you that are like me and enjoy the position of fantasy football in this article of the Substack, I will be each week throwing in a special streaming kicker section for all you sickos who like to stream kickers like myself and analyze kickers. I'm going to have a section in our red light, green light Substack that is all about the kickers for the week. So,
well, you are a sicko, Shane. That doesn't sound fun at all. You put streaming defenses in there too, yeah?
Yep, streaming defenses.
Okay, and kickers, all right. So yeah, if you guys want to take a look at the Substack, great stuff there by Shane-O-Mac. So stay tuned, and most importantly, love the world.